All right, guys, so we're finally doing regular notes for this unit, and we are going to be doing our notes over the kingdoms and trading states of medieval Africa. So basically, we're talking about West Africa. When we say medieval, that's just the time period we're studying. Everything we're studying this year is in the medieval or Middle Ages period. So don't get thrown off by that. All right, we're also going to be talking about the influence of Islam on West Africa. Now, from the bell ringer that we did earlier in the week, you could see the one that we did on Wednesday, where we had the maps. You could see that Islam was in the green on the map and it was very centralized around West Africa and Northern Africa. That's because that is where the traders from the Arabian Peninsula would come in and spread their religion and spread their culture and trade goods. Christianity is down closer to the southern eastern part of Africa, and that is because of Europeans coming in later. We don't talk about that. We focused directly on Islam. All right, now our main standard for this set of notes is 723. We need to analyze the growth of the kingdoms of Ghana, Mali, and Songhai, including cities such as Daejeon and Timbuktu as centers of trade, culture, and learning. All right, so we need to be able to locate all of these things on the map: the Kingdom of Ghana, the Kingdom of Mali, the Kingdom of Songhai, and the trade cities of Daejeon and Timbuktu. Sometimes you will see Daejeon spelt without the D. It'll just be Jean or Jene. That is fine. That is still accurate. It just isn't the way we usually spell it. So if you see it like that, don't be alarmed. It's still the same city. And we need to analyze the growth of these kingdoms and the growth of cities like Daejeon and Timbuktu as centers of trade, culture, and learning. So, how did they grow? How did they fall? And what led to them growing and falling? Now, obviously, because this is our regular notes, you are only writing down what is highlighted or in red and underlined. So the Muslims moved into Africa during the 7th century and they spread quickly, primarily due to a healthy trade with West Africa. Obviously, they're going to stay where they can make money. Over the next 200 years, Mali and Songhai accepted Islam, and the new faith brought many changes and left a lasting mark on the culture of West Africa. Africans blended their new religions with their own culture, whereas they would pray in Arabic, but they would still pray to the spirits of their ancestors. So they were actually able to merge a lot of those indigenous religious practices that we talked about on Wednesday with Islam. Now, they wouldn't focus on those deities, those gods and goddesses, but they would still do the ancestor worship. They still believed that everything had a soul. So they were still practicing animism and ancestor worship. They just weren't focusing on the deities anymore because now they were believing in Allah, aka God. Remember, Allah is the Islamic word for God, and that is the same God that Christians and Jews worship as well. So Islam left a lasting impression on all aspects of African culture. All right. So this is the civilizations to around 700. This is similar to a map that we saw on our Dragon Time activity for the West African geography. So we can see here we have Ghana, Mali, and Songhai. You can spell Songhai Hai or Hay. Again, same empire. It is fine. If you notice, they all overlap. They are all overlapping, and they are all on or close to the Niger River. Okay, so that is a really big deal. They're going to want to be near or have control of that river in order to trade, get fresh water, have areas for good farming. But also, they all are going to be on the Trans Saharan trade route, which is going to come in through here. That allows them access to trade, getting things they don't have, and it allows them to spread their culture and have the Islamic culture spread to them. Obviously, today it is very, very different, but Mali is still taking over a good chunk there. Ghana would have been over here and Songhai over here, or Ghana up here and Songhai over here. Ghana has since moved down here. Yeah, lots of different countries. Now, Africa is the second largest continent. It stretches about 4,600 miles from east to west and 5,000 miles from north to south, and it takes up or occupies 1/5 of the Earth's land surface. Now, each of the environments offers its own challenges. Obviously, there's a lot of desert. The Sahara and the Kalahari are largely unsuitable for human life and they hamper movement, which is why, if we go back to the map, you can see the areas that have a lot of desert. Those, those countries are much larger than the ones that don't. That's because a lot of this land is unusable due to the desert. Now, for rainforest, it's partly uninhabitable because of the dense forest and the tsetse fly, which is a picture down here, that can actually kill people. So you can't really stay in the rainforest that much. Some people in some areas are able to, but some areas you just can't. Now, most people live in the savannas. Those are the grassy plains where most people live. It supports abundant agriculture production. The savanna is kind of that mix between desert and rainforest. You're going to have a lot of ability to grow crops and everything, but it's going to be warmer and a little bit drier, or it's going to be drier than the rainforest because the rainforest is also warm. All right, now again, another map here. Okay, so we have Ghana in the yellow, we have Mali outlined in blue, and we have the Songhai Empire outlined in this brick color. Now, if you notice, all of the empires, when we keep looking at these maps, they're shaped somewhat differently. That's going to happen. We don't have specific, it's not like the indigenous Africans actually drew out a map saying that they knew, drawing all the boundary lines for Ghana and Mali and Songhai and all of these other groups. They didn't do that. So we're having to piece it together based off of what we know from what was written down or what was spoken about. So they're not the best well known areas, but we do know roughly where they're at. Now, something I want to point out and something that is very, very important is knowing which ones come first. They actually come in alphabetical order. So Ghana happens first, Mali happens second, and Songhai is the last one. So they literally go in alphabetical order. GMS, Ghana, Mali, Songhai. Ghana, Mali, Songhai, first, second, third. That's going to be a test question. You need to remember which one comes first, which one's in the middle, which one's last. But again, we're seeing that all of them have some form of contact or are close to the Niger River, and all of them have some contact with the Trans-Saharan trade route. Obviously, we can't see the trade route on here because it's not drawn, but still. Now, with the Ghana Empire, there were many trade routes that crossed the savannah through the region farmed by the Soninke people. The Soninke called their leader Ghana, or war chief. That is where we get the name the Ghana Empire, because that is what they called their leader. By the 700s, Ghana was a kingdom, and its rulers were growing rich by taxing the goods the traders carried through their territory. Of course, what better way to make money than to get people to buy or to pay money to get access to your city or their empire so they can trade? The two most important trade items were gold and salt. The gold was coming from a forest region between the Niger and Senegal rivers, and the salt came from the Sahara Desert. All right, we saw a little bit on on our Dragon Time activity about how the salt was mined out and carried through the desert. And by the year 800, Ghana had become an empire. The king of Ghana was controlling trade by storing large amounts of gold and salt that only he had the power over. So he literally was controlling it by controlling what could be traded. He commanded a large army. He demanded taxes and gifts from chiefs of surrounding lands. and would allow them to live in peace if payments were made. So if he didn't pay up, he was going to attack you. And he acted as a religious leader and the chief judge. So not only was he the leader of the government, he was the leader of the empire's religion. He would be the one to lead all of the prayers and all of the offerings and things like that. And he was also the chief judge. So if you broke the law, it was up to him to decide what your punishment was and if you were even guilty. He had an incredible amount of power. That doesn't seem very fair, because if he doesn't like you, he's got all the power. Now, we know that their first king was named Dingasise, and they didn't really have many resources other than that salt and that gold. But we know that they were very good at making things from iron. They used iron-tipped spears to attack their neighbors, and the neighbors would generally lose because their weapons were made of stone, bone, wood. They couldn't stand up to those iron-tipped spears. So that's one of the reasons why their empire was able to grow and become so important and rich, is because they had much better weapons. All right. Again, another showing of what the Ghana Empire looked like in terms of size. Again, it's not going to be exactly the same from map to map, but it's close. All right, we have some things made out of gold. Looks like a tick. That's really weird. All right, we have some gold statues. All right, this is kind of an aerial view of what that area sort of looks like now. And then you have all of these salt mines. All right, look at all this salt. Look at all that salt. All right. Ghana became rich and powerful, especially when they began using camels as a source of transportation. Because they relied on trade, by using the camels, they were able to go faster, they were able to carry more. It was much more efficient use for trading. So obviously, the camel really, really helped out with making Ghana such an important empire. Now, because of all this trading, you have the religion of Islam being spread over northern Africa. Remember, the followers of Islam are called Muslims. Now, people in Ghana did not convert to Islam, but the king allowed the Muslims to build settlements within its borders. So there wasn't an immediate conversion there. Some did, many did not, but they were living in harmony. They were living together peacefully. Until the Almoravids come along. In the middle 11th century, the Almoravids, who was a Muslim group, they invaded and captured the capital city of Kombi. I want to make very clear that this is not the same group of Muslims that were living in Ghana. They were not the same Muslims that were living in Ghana peacefully. This was a different group. All right. The Almoravids didn't stay long, but under their rule, Islam became much more widespread in Ghana. More and more people were actually converting, gaining more power with Islam. So local warriors then decided to break away from the power of Ghana and create their own local kingdoms. So a lot of the trade networks started to disappear, and Ghana started to become more and more weak until finally Ghana basically falls apart. All right, now we have two of the main leaders of the Mali Empire, Sundiata, who started it, and Mansa Musa, who is the most well-known and richest person in the world, even in his death. All right, now we have videos here. All right, I'll let you watch the videos on your own. All right, you have a video about Sundiata, you have a video about Mansa Musa. The big thing to know about Sundiata is that his story is actually part of the basis of the movie The Lion King, and that he is the one who starts the Mali Empire. And Mansa Musa is so important because he is the one who brings the knowledge of the Mali Empire throughout parts of Europe and Arabia, aka the Arabian Peninsula, because he is Muslim and he takes a pilgrimage. And on his pilgrimage, he is spreading all of this gold and knowledge about his empire. All right, again, want to review. We are still analyzing the growth of the kingdoms of Ghana, Mali, and Songhai, including the cities of Timbuktu and Daejeon as centers of trade, culture, and learning. Okay, we've seen multiple maps of Ghana and Mali and Songhai. All right, the growth of the kingdom. All right, so Ghana grew due to trade routes, due to the trade of gold and salt. So, trade of gold and salt, trade routes, camels, iron tipped spears, all of that allowed them to grow. But when they were taken over by a group of Muslims, that led to their downfall. That led to them becoming much more weak and falling apart. Now, in the year 1240, the Mande people conquered Kambi. That is the same city that was taken over by the Almoravids. And they took over the trade routes to North Africa and built their own empire. So the Mande people, their empire becomes known as Mali, which is what we're seeing right here. They have control of Daejeon. Again, you can spell Daejeon without the D. Then you would pronounce it Jene or Jene, whichever. Same city and Timbuktu. Right? Mali's wealth was also built on gold. And the early leaders of the Mali Empire accepted Islam, but they didn't follow all of its teachings. Later on, Islam becomes more and more important to their teachings. Now, a powerful king named Sundiata ruled Mali from around 1230 to 1255, and he becomes known as Mansa, or emperor. So when we hear Mansa, that just means leader, okay? Emperor, king, same deal. So Mansa Sundiata means Emperor Sundiata. Mansa Musa means Emperor Musa. Now, Mansa Sundiata led his people in conquering and expanding his kingdom to be as great as Ghana had been. And there were 7 rulers in the 50 years between Sundiata and Mansa Musa. That doesn't make it sound like these rulers were very good. But notice we stopped counting at Mansa Musa because Mansa Musa is considered to be the greatest king of Mali. He truly developed the gold and salt trade of Mali. His kingdom became very rich and powerful, and Mali became a huge center of crossroads. It becomes this huge crossroads of the ancient Islamic world. So Mali becomes one of the best ways to spread the Islamic word, the Islamic religion, the Arabic language, the Islamic culture, because they're trading with the people of Mali. The people of Mali are trading with the Muslims. Perfect spot. Ow, I'm sorry. All right, over here we have another picture of Sundiata, and here we have a drawn picture of Mansa Musa on a map. All right, you'll see this picture again next week, or technically on Tuesday. Mansa Musa built many beautiful mosques or Islamic temples in Western Africa, as well as attending public prayers and supporting holy men. So Mansa Musa was not just going to be practicing his religion on his own. He literally went to public prayers. He was showing his face. He was promoting his religion and getting people to buy into the religion, but also showing that he cared about his people enough to be with them in public during these prayers. All right, so this is a more modern picture of one of the mosques in Daejeon. All right. Now, again, we saw this being built in our videos from Dragon Time. So we know that this is made out of a mixture of mud and sand and rice husks that's been fermented for about a month. It's built up all together. That these wooden stakes are there for stability, not just for people to climb on, and that this gets remudded or resurfaced every single year. All right, obviously this is newer because they've installed speaker systems to remind people, hey, it's time to pray. Because again, Muslims pray at least 5 times a day. Now, Super duper important here. In 1324, Mansa Musa made a Hajj, or a pilgrimage. That is a journey to a holy place, to Mecca, which is the holy city in Arabia. Remember, because Mansa Musa is a Muslim, Mansa Musa goes to Mecca. He has to go to Mecca once in his lifetime in order to pay his respects to Muhammad and Allah. Now, on his way there, he was traveling with 60,000 servants and followers and 80 camels carrying more than 4,000 pounds of gold. You thought the camels in the videos from Dragon Time were loud, and they were just carrying salt. Those camels are probably really loud when they get to let go of that gold. He wasn't carrying that gold, though, just to carry it. He was giving it out to the poor people. He was giving it out to areas that he stopped in. And of the 12,000 servants, 500 of them carried a staff of pure gold. This was used as a way to show off his power and wealth to the other people he was visiting. Okay, so he's literally showing off by having them carry gold staffs. He was offended when asked to kneel before the Sultan, and after he did, the Sultan seated him next to himself as an equal. He was offended by kneeling because he felt that he wasn't inferior or below anyone other than Allah. He felt that he shouldn't be kneeling to anybody other than Allah because no one was more important to him than Allah, especially not some new sultan that he had just met today. People lined the streets to see him in Mecca and Medina. All right, so you could spell the city of Mecca as Makkah, Makkah. We generally spell it Mecca, Mecca, but that is the same city. Mecca, Makkah, the exact same city. He paid for everything in gold. He gave expensive gifts to his hosts, where he would stop and settle for a few days to rest. He would pay for the construction of mosques. It's almost like the scene in Aladdin. I'm going to let you just watch that on your own. I'm going to let you watch that. But by 1375, Mali was recognized as a great empire, and it was included in the European map of Africa. All right, when you get included on that map, that is when you know you've made it. That is when you know that you are well known, you are established, everyone knows who you are. That is the big deal. Now, after he returned, he ordered mosques to be built in the major cities of Timbuktu and Gao. There were already mosques in the city of Daejeon. He wanted them built in Timbuktu and Gao. We don't talk about Gao that much, but it was also a trade city. All right, this is the picture. This is a picture of one of those European maps. They drew him on there very, very big. All right, they drew him on here with sitting on a throne. He's holding a gold staff. He's holding a gold coin. He's got a gold crown on. They're showing him as rich, rich, rich. All right, and he is surrounded. He is surrounded by what could be mosques. And next to him, there are traders on camels. So they're showing that, hey, you can trade here. This is an Islamic area, and he is incredibly rich. All right, these tents, I know they kind of look like circus tents, but they are to be showing off that this is a trading area. Okay, those are like merchant tents. The problem is Mansa Musa is not going to live forever. And when he dies, there wasn't any king as powerful as him to follow. Once you lose your best leader, you're going to become more and more weak. So eventually, a group of people known as Berbers, not Gerbers like Gerber baby, this is the Berber. The Berbers came into the area, and other people came up from the south to claim parts of the Mali Empire. But even though Mali fell, the Songhai Kingdom or the Songhai Empire actually takes its place. All right, now the Berbers actually do still live in North Africa. This picture was taken in 1893. It's showing a group of Berbers. So they still live there. And then here's the Songhai Empire. All right, we can see they have control at least of the main city of Daejeon, of Timbuktu. They have Gao as well. All of this red is trade routes. Okay? So as you can see, these cities are all incredibly important because they are trading cities. That trade is going to allow them to grow and thrive and become so important. Those trade cities are also going to help the empires grow. Now, Mali grew partially because Mansa Musa and Sundiata were great leaders, but also because of Mansa Musa's pilgrimage, him showing off their wealth and power as he was going on his Hajj to Mecca, let a ton of people know that Mali was a great place to be, and a lot of people traveled there afterwards. Right now we're into Songhai, which is taking parts of the Ghana Empire and the Mali Empire. All right. Remember, they go in alphabetical order. Ghana goes first, then Mali, then Songhai. Ghana is the smallest, Mali in the middle, and then Songhai is the largest. Okay, small, medium, large, first, second, third, Ghana, Mali, Songhai. Should be pretty easy to remember that. So as Mali declined in the 1400s, people under its control began to break away, and among those were the Songhai people in the east. They built up an army, extended their territory up to the Niger River, and gained control of the important trade routes. All right, if you can control the trade routes, you're going to control a huge empire because you are going to have money and you are going to have power. You want control of trade routes. You want to control the trade routes. Now, they had two very important leaders. You had Sunni Ali and Sunni Askia Muhammad. Sunni, again, is another word for emperor. This does not mean that they were Sunni Muslims. They are using the word Sunni to mean emperor or king. All right, so this is one artist's idea of what Sunni Ali might have looked like. He saw that the kingdom of Mali was weakening and he led his soldiers to conquer the area, and he actually set up the kingdom of Songhai. He also set up a very complex government to rule all of the lands he had conquered. So Sunni Ali conquered Mali, created Songhai, set up a complex government. Okay, that's pretty important there. Now, he dies in 1492. That is the exact same year that Christopher Columbus sails the ocean blue, lands in the Caribbean, thinks he's in India. You know the drill. His son took over the rule of Songhai, but he wasn't Muslim. He was not Islamic. And that was a very big problem to a lot of people because the others were Muslim. And they felt it was not right for a Muslim empire to not have a Muslim as their leader. So one of Sunni Ali's generals, Askia Muhammad, throws out the new king and makes himself king of Songhai. He was Muslim. He continued with Islam as the religion of the kingdom. And pretty much everyone was like, okay, I'm okay with this. All right, so again, this is another photo of a mosque or a place of worship for Muslims in Western Africa. All right, theirs looks different. Their mosque is obviously not blending in very well with the ground like the ones in Dejendu. Now, this is going on because there is more sand there is more sand in the mix as it cured, so it became lighter. Now, Songhai remained a rich and strong kingdom under Askia Muhammad's rule. It had a complex government centered in the city of Gao, and they had great centers of learning. So every one of these trade cities, Daejeon, Timbuktu, Gao, they all are going to be huge trade cities because people are going to want to stop there and trade, but they also have a lot of schools, a lot of centers of learning, which encourages people to stay and learn. In the late 1500s, Morocco invaded Songhai to take its rich trade routes, and the Moroccans were able to be very successful because they had a brand new weapon, the gun. All right. Songhai did not have guns. Morocco did. I think it's safe to say Morocco won and the Songhai Empire falls apart. So every one of these empires has fallen apart because of invasion. They're growing due to trade routes, they are falling due to invasion. Now, one empire that isn't mentioned in our standards, but we do need to talk about because it has a humongous impact on the age of exploration and also American history, is Benin. To the south and the west was the kingdom of Benin. The Oba, or kings of Benin, date from the 1200s, and the rulers based their right to rule on descent from the first kings of Africa. So they were claiming they were right to rule due to their family lineage, due to who was in their family, their ancestors. In the 1400s, the Oba, or king, made Benin into a major Western state. They built up a powerful army, walled off their cities, they built huge palaces with magnificent artwork. And then they start trading with Europeans, specifically the Portuguese. All right, the Portuguese trading ships begin to sail into Benin's ports. They're trading for pepper, animal skins, ivory, and slaves. And this begins centuries of European interference in Africa. This is one of the starting places of the Atlantic slave trade. I'll let you watch that video on your own, but just stop it at 4:30. Don't go past that. It's not worth it. Or just skip the video altogether. I don't blame you. Slavery is awful, but something that I want to make very well known and clear is that it wasn't always Europeans taking people as slaves. It would sometimes even be Africans selling other Africans into slavery or trading them into slavery for things like guns or tobacco or alcohol or animal skins or ivory or pepper. It's not a good piece of history. History does not always make you happy. History can make you mad, it can make you sad. That's the way it goes. Life is not always sunshine and roses. All right, so here is Portugal on the map. Here is Benin. As you see, it's not too far away from Ghana, Mali, Songhai. And then the slaves could go up here, or eventually they would start going over to North and South America. One of the big pieces that I keep mentioning over and over and over in these notes is Islam. Okay, because if I go back to the map, all right, you can see, all right, the Arabian Peninsula is over here. The Arabian Peninsula is over here. They are trading through Africa by land and also by water. The Islamic religion, the religion of Islam, is going to be spreading. The Arabic language is going to be spreading. That culture is going to be spreading. All right, so of course that's going to have a huge impact, especially when your empires are growing because of those trade routes. Now, as West Africa embraced Islam, they were taught the 5 pillars of Islam. But Africans were allowed to pray to the spirits of their ancestors as long as it doesn't violate the 5 pillars of Islam. So what that means is as long as they acknowledge that Allah is the only God, they can still pray to their ancestors. They can still practice ancestor worship. They just can only have one God, aka Allah. So that high God and those deities that we read about on Wednesday with the indigenous religion, those are now pushed away. Those are now, nope, we don't believe in you anymore. We have Allah. Which is why when we think back to that map for the bell ringer we did Wednesday, if you think back to the top, where in the 1900s you had a lot of dark color, and then in the 1900s you didn't, that shows the progression of more and more people moving away from the belief of the indigenous religions. So Arabic becomes the official language of the governments throughout the Islamic world, which is a huge deal because you can write Arabic down. African law wasn't written down until the Islamic religion and Arabic were adopted. So now They were writing down their laws in Arabic because they were written down in detail. They were considered to have come directly from God. It was so important to have them written down so people knew what to do. And Islam placed a very high premium or importance on education. They built many schools of learning, education, which again allows these empires and cities to grow because you're encouraging people to move in to go to school, to teach at these schools. Like, it's a very big deal. Now, Timbuktu became famous for its Islamic scholars under the empires of both Mali and Songhai. So, Timbuktu is important, Daejeon is important, Gao is important, all because of the Islamic religion, the schools, and the trade routes. I want to make that very clear. They're important because of trade routes and the Islamic religion and education. Now, as we've already said, Arabic was the religion of Islam, so it also becomes the language of their government, their commerce or their trading, their education. All right. Africans were expected to adopt the language, so they were expected to learn Arabic, but they were still allowed to talk in their common language, which is called vernacular. Vernacular is common language. Vernacular is common language. So that's the language you're going to use every day when you're talking to your friends. But when you're in school, you would be using something else, or you would be using a proper form of that language. Traditionally, Africans were building small shrines to nature, but under Islam, they built mosques for the worship of God or Allah. And although these were built from mud and wood, they did still mimic the Muslim architecture as much as possible. So even when these were being made out of different materials or being made by different people, they were still trying to make it match the area. So the mosque might look a little bit different from the other buildings in West Africa, but it was still going to blend in. It wasn't going to stand out like a sore thumb. And the African art was combined with Muslim art. So again, they're doing calligraphy, which is fancy writing, the geometric patterns in pieces of art and in textiles. All right, so in one of the videos on Wednesday, the video about Daejeon, you were seeing how they were building the buildings, but also how they were using mud to dye their clothing. All right, they would put the mud on the clothes, in the stripes, in the boxes, and the diagonal lines, all of those patterns. And then when they would dye the fabric, the mud would wash off, and the spots that the mud was on. Those spots were the original color, and everything else was a different color. So that's what I mean by geometric patterns. All right, and we do have a video about Mansa Musa and Islam in Africa to watch. I'll let you watch it on your own. Now, notice we didn't have any questions in here. That's because I'm asking questions in class. All right, if you have any questions or comments about what we were learning about today, leave them under your assignment, fill in your notes, and remember, you should only be watching this video if you are not here in school. All right, you should only be using the master copy of the notes if you are not in school. If you are here in the building, you need to be following along using the student copy. All right, the master will be projected on the board by myself and Mrs. Romine. The only reason you should be using this video or the master copy is if you are not here. All right, guys, have a great rest of your day. Bye.